Thank you very much. So yes, Pivotal is a 4-year-old company with a $2.8 billion valuation. We have 21 offices worldwide, including our R&D center in Beijing, which is where I was right before I came here to Hong Kong. We have approximately 2,300 employees worldwide. We call them pivots. You might know us from some of our flagship products. I talked with people today who have used Pivotal Tracker, and they were wondering if it's the same company. It is. This is Pivotal Tracker, is the world's most popular product management planning tool. Pivotal Cloud Foundry is the world's most powerful cloud-native development application platform. Pivotal Greenplum is one of the products that I get to work on. It's a massively parallel data warehouse. Pivotal Gemfire is a in-memory data grid for sub-second latency response times. So these are our core products. As I mentioned, I get to work on the data products. So my job, my day-to-day job, is that I am the VP of R&D for our big data products like Greenplum and Gemfire. At Pivotal, we know that data powers business. So just for example, to get here today, we took a taxi. And to plan our journey last night, my colleague and I were looking at a mapping application that could predict how long our journey was going to be to get here. Now, when I was growing up, this was science fiction. What does it take to be able to have an application that can tell you how long it's going to take you to get somewhere tomorrow during rush hour traffic? It takes a lot of data, so you have all that historical data, and it takes a lot of compute power. Data powers business. If you look at a company like whether you use Didi or Uber or Lyft, if you look at a car sharing application, what's behind that is a whole ton of data. So data is powering business. If you look at a company like Netflix, what they're doing with data, not only do they have the data about what people are watching and how long they're watching, what content is popular, they're then able to turn that around and say, people like you are watching things like this and recommend things to you. And in recommending things, they're finding that 75% of views are coming from the recommended content. This creates this virtuous feedback cycle that allows them to choose which of the original projects they're going to invest in and make better decisions about that. And then you look at something like Airbnb, and you've got all of this data about the number of times somebody has booked a property, and as well as the reviews for properties and so forth. What they found is that if the host selects a price that is within 5% of the target that is offered by the app, they are 4 times more likely to book that property. So what this means is that data is powering change. Changes in business models, changes in customer experience, changes in behavior. So this is the stuff that I get to work on a day-to-day basis. I have kind of a fun job. However, and that change is so important because 88% of the companies that were on the Fortune 100 list in 1955 are out of business as of 2014. So what that means is that all this change, and data is powering all of this change, that is creating a fundamental shift in landscapes that companies need to respond to. And that entrepreneurs like you are in a wonderful position to take advantage of. Which is why what I actually came to tell you about is how we work at Pivotal. We're known for our super opinionated agile software development practices. And that's because we've noticed that how we work is just as important as what we work on, because it determines how fast we can go, how much we can scale. This is our office in Beijing, and you'll notice something about this office. So our super opinionated agile practice is based on extreme programming, which means it's a very disciplined form of software development. Our developers pair. They work together, not just collaborating, although collaborating, we're going to talk a lot about collaborating, but it's two people who are working on the same artifact at the same time. One computer, two keyboards, two people working on the same artifact at the same time. They are practicing test-driven development, which means before they write a line of code, they write a little automated unit test that is going to fail. Then they run it and see that it fails, and then they write the line of code that makes that pass. And by having that internal discipline to write that test and then go through the full cycle, that means that at every minute of every moment, they are producing potentially shippable software. We make sure that we have a high degree of visibility on how shippable our software is. If you look in the background, you will see big monitors that show green and red. And if it goes red, then we stop work and we go get that back to green. Red means that a test failed, and it might be one test out of 10,000. But that is enough to make us stop the line and get that test back to green. Now, this may seem very difficult. And it is. It requires a degree of rigor and discipline that's difficult. But if you want to go very fast, it is very important to have that internal discipline. When you take all of our practices and distill it down, there are two key features that I think are super important to highlight to you, and that I hope that you will be able to embrace in your companies. The first is radical collaboration. So as I mentioned, we have developers who are pairing all the time, working together. Even if they weren't pairing, that's one form of radical collaboration. But another form of radical collaboration is the notion that the entire team owns the code base. So we have this mental picture of the genius developer with the headphones on and the Mountain Dew, and they're going to go off in the corner and they're going to do genius things because they're a genius individual. And the thing is, if you want to scale and you want to grow very, very quickly, that does not scale. That person can never go on vacation. That person may be absolutely brilliant, but the minute they leave the office, the ability for the team as a whole to make progress stops. So we practice radical collaboration in the sense that the team all owns the assets, the IP, the thing that they're working on, the content. They own responsibility for that together. Teams that have to collaborate will often swap pairs. So they're not doing a handoff, they're actually actively collaborating. And I want to tell you a quick story about somebody on my team who's really good at collaborating, but in a more traditional environment, he got dinged for it. His manager said, "Oh, that guy Venki, you have to watch out for him every single moment because if you're not watching him, he won't do his work. He's talking to people." So I knew this about Venki, and I did watch him. And he wasn't just talking to people. He was the glue that held the entire team together. He was the one who was making sure that the team was sharing context. He ultimately was the one who was helping the team move forward together. So it's not about the 10x developer who's a genius. It's about building a 10x team of people who are eager to collaborate together. And the second big thing is fast feedback. In that micro sense, I mentioned test-driven development. That's one aspect of fast feedback. So before you even write the code, you write the test, then you watch the test run. Over time, you have thousands of tests. They run in minutes. That's super fast feedback. However, that's only feedback about the extent to which the code that you're writing met your intentions. The other level of fast feedback is more at your business level. So if you think about the lean startup cycle of build, measure, learn. And there's a story from the early days of Pivotal Labs that I think illustrates this best, partly because it's a founder story, and many of you are founders. So a founder came to Labs and said, "I just got funded." This is great news, right? $2.5 million. Okay. And I want to do a project with you guys. Okay. And mostly I want to see if the idea that I have is even feasible, because it might not be. And so I want to scope a $250,000 project with you to see if this technology is feasible. And if it's not, then I want to take the rest of the money and give it back to my investors. That kind of Dedication to getting feedback, that takes courage. But that's the way that you get the credibility. That's the way you're able to grow your company. If you've got that much of your runway left, now you can pivot and you can grow a business that will actually thrive. The happy news in that particular case is that that company, it grew, it succeeded, and ultimately it got acquired. As a founder, if you practice this way of working, this agile way of thinking, you are part of a rich tradition that started in the 1990s as a rejection of the very formal waterfall kinds of methods that involve big design up front and very long release cycles. These methods were adopted by what you now know as household names today: Twitter, eBay, Google. The early internet, what became the internet giants, realized that this was a better way of enabling them to steer toward value. Pivotal was born in 2013, and we helped to accelerate this with our tooling, with our methods, the way we teach our customers how to work and think this way. And ultimately, the incumbents are now working in this way. So as we go forward, I really hope that I get to work with you and that your companies all succeed and that you're able to apply these agile principles to thrive and scale and grow. Thank you.